survive. I survive. I survive. I survive. I survive. So I picked up my shoes, got up and walked away. Oh, I was just a boy. I didn't know how. Oh, I'm a one-man band. Nobody knows or understands. Is there anybody out there wanna lend a hand to my one-man band? In the moonlight, dancing in the strange light. Who were you with in the moonlight? Who was holding you so tight? Who were you with in the moonlight? Who was holding you so tight? You know I can dance, you know I can dance. You know I can dance, you know I can dance. I can dance. Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got a feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair. And I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Courtney. Hey, mate, you right?
Yeah.
Your mic's on, so
Hello.
So,
Good evening, everyone. Hello.
you're all, believe me, you're all going to be singing at least one of those on the way home.
Including me, I guess.
Yeah, I hope so. So, David, thank you for coming here. I know you come all the way from Brighton.
All the way.
To be in front of this massive crowd this evening.
Beautiful here. Beautiful place. Hertford. Beautiful.
So, for the people that are here, and we are filming this as well, so more people will see this, but tell us about your early childhood so that everyone here knows.
How long we got?
We've got an hour, so make it quick.
All right, oh, well, my childhood, obviously, I was born and bred in Brighton, which I'm sure you'll know the place. It's been there at some point, maybe for a weekend or whatever. And my career really started when I was at school, really. I was at 14 years of age. In fact, I left school just after I was 14 years of age. And like many other guys, we formed bands at school and all that sort of back in those days. And with my best mate at the time, a guy called Peter Hall, we formed a band and we did the youth clubs and the whole you know, all the local gigs. And the band just went on from there until I turned professional at the age of 16. And then the band members had changed by then, and it, you know, it just grew.
So was that your first interest in music then, when you were at school?
I used to drive my parents mad because I used to be banging on the kitchen table all the time. I was a drummer. That was my thing. I wanted to play drums. And,
Great for the neighbours.
Yeah, it was fine. And they did buy me a drum kit eventually, and it didn't last very long because my mother couldn't stand the noise in the end of it coming from upstairs. There was banging going. So, but as I say, eventually, you know, as the band grew, I became professional at 16, and we were on the road. So, my life from the age of 16 really onwards wasn't the norm. So up and down the M1, playing all those.
That's very, very early to go professional. 16. What did your family think of that then?
Well, you know, I think there was two thoughts there. My father was, he loved the idea of it being in music, but at the same time thought, okay, it's going to be a passing fad, and I'll end up getting a real job, which will probably be with him, because by then he built up a car dealership and a Vauxhall dealership, and I worked there at very early days on the petrol pumps. I was a pump boy, you know, pumping gas, and then as I say, we went professional, and then that was my life from there on. You know, really being on the road, and never really seen much daylight. I have to say, when we were going up to London to play at a club called the Bag and Nails, which was it's a famous club back in the '60s and early '70s, where all the rock acts used to be the audience every night. That McCartney, that's
could do with a few here tonight, couldn't we? Really?
Yeah. And that's where McCartney met Linda, and you know, every night it would be full of.
What was your group called?
The band was called the Urchins. We had a record deal with Polygram. We never really made it that big as a band. We had one very close shot, which was we went for an audition with a guy called Larry Page, who unfortunately just passed away. And Larry auditioned us and said, "Well, you're not quite ready yet. Come back in 6 weeks, and I've got a song for you that you can record, you know, for the band." So, but we left it 2 months, and we went back, and he said, "Well, I've given the song away now, but you're a lot better now than what you were when I first saw you." Anyway, the song, as it turned out, was Wild Thing. But to be honest, we would never have been the right band for it. When you look at what he did with the Trogs, they were perfect for it. I later became friendly with Reg Presley, and he was a fantastic, mad as a box of frogs, but a lovely guy.
There's going to be a lot of name dropping in this, believe me. But I promise you, David does know all these people. So this band, just to sort of carry on this theme for a moment, were you writing songs at that point as well?
No, you don't write many songs on a drum kit, funny enough.
No. Phil Collins has managed it.
Yeah. No, I self-taught myself on both of those instruments, you know, piano and drums. But yeah, piano starting out, bashing out chords, you know, not really even knowing what the names of the chords were.
So who were your early influences then?
Well, I mean, very early influences. As a kid growing up, my father, you know, his music, which happens to a lot, your father's music,
Yeah.
rubs off on you, and he was very big on things like, you know, big band stuff, because of that era that they come from. And funny enough, it was Glenn Miller, when I used to play the Glenn Miller record, In the Mood, that's what inspired me all those years later to write Long Tall Glasses with the same riff, because if you think of the In the Mood, Glenn Miller, and when I came to write Long Tall Glasses on the piano, I came up with the riff, so it's very sort of close.
You never got sued for it though.
No, but there was no plagiarism involved. But it certainly shows you how you're inspired by everything.
Yeah,
So that was the earliest records, but then my first ownership of my first album was Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley. I remember my mother buying me that record, and that was like something. Back in those days, you know, as you will all know, records and music had more importance. It was ownership, you know, you owned a record, especially it was all early, you know, vinyl, because it was beyond just the music. There was the fantastic artwork on the front covers and all the liner notes and the lyrics and all that. It was a whole experience, and it all sort of got washed away once the internet came and it all just sort of dissipated. It's good, however, to see the vinyl has now come back for those reasons, and people now, they can plug a record player through their computer now, download it.
Oh no, he does that there, so that's what everyone's
early
doing.
music influences would have been the early ones, like, I guess, to a certain degree, Presley. I was never completely overstruck with Presley, but anyway, I mean, I admired what he did. But people like, funnily enough, Adam Faith and all those early Tommy Steele and all that stuff. Little did I realise at the time when I was listening to these guys' music that I was later going to be working with them, you know. And in the case of Adam, well, I became his closest
Very good friend. Well, we'll come on to that, but so this band wasn't really getting anywhere. So what changed?
What changed? I guess look, like many of these things, it ran its course, and it's a bit like a marriage, when you're with 4, 5, 6 other guys and a coach, and you're going, things happen, Anyway, as I say, it eventually ran its course, and I came back home, and then I think I got married. My first marriage was when I was only 18. So sort of living now, I've had to readjust, having come off the road for that period of time, to come back into civil world, sort of like Civil Street, as what the army would call it, to start again, and where am I going to go from here? What am I going to do? And that's when I started to teach myself on the piano and started to write songs. And Adam and I were great mates by then, He'd been my boss up until that point, and then we became...
So that's what I was going to ask you, because obviously we're going to come on to your great friendship with Adam Faith, who wasn't actually called Adam Faith, and we'll ask you about that as well, because I know that's in the book. But so the friendship with Adam came first before you started writing the songs?
Oh yes, because as I say, he was, well, let me just back up there a bit. When we were playing those clubs, especially the Bag of Nails, which was owned by some guys in London called the Gunnell Agency. They're a bit infamous, these guys. And they were in partnership with Georgie Fame with the Bag of Nails. And we became the resident band there. So it was quite something. At my age then, I was about 16, as I say, and to be in a club, a nightclub, playing till the early hours of the morning, so I at least didn't used to come out of there until about 3 o'clock in the morning, For a 16-year-old boy, you'd never get away with it now. They'd never let you be in the premises. But through the Gunnell Agency, we used to get offered certain tours with backing other artists. And one of them was to go for an audition for Adam Faith, because his band, the Roulettes, were breaking up, and he needed a band because he was going to go on the road to do a tour in Germany with all the American GI camps in Germany. So he auditioned us at the Ram Jam Club in Brixton on a beautiful day like this, actually. I remember it very well. And as soon as he heard us, he said, "Okay, you got the gig." Well, this is something, isn't it? Ironic, I'm going to be working with this guy who used to see his picture up on my wall, back in those early 60s. And so we went and we did the tour with him, and it was all those GI camps in Germany, and we were doing 3 a day. So, and they're all up the Autobahn, like over 100 mile apart, these things. So it's quite exhausting. And it was in the winter. So it was full-on blizzards. And I remember sitting on New Year's Eve in this van, and he was in the van with us, with Adam and the boys in the band, and we're broken down on the Autobahn, and I'm sitting there thinking, did I do the right? Did I make the right? Is this what it's going to be? And I thought, this is no fun, is it? So we did all these GI camps, and that was all fun. And then him and I, we slowly struck up this relationship to the point that when it had all finished, and as I say, I came home, back home to live, my friendship with him continued, and by then he was just about to start to do Budgie, if you remember the series Budgie. And as I say, my father had a car dealership, so he thought it would be great for Adam. Thought it would be great fun. He said, "Why don't we?" He said, "I've got time off between filming. Why don't we go on the road together and go and buy some cars?" I thought, well, this is neat, isn't it? Why am I doing this? Anyway, but he would talk me into so many different things. And we'd go out there on the road, him with his clogs on, and the whole, I was on the road with Budgie, and we're walking into car showrooms, and of course they're all like gobsmacked, thinking, what's he doing here, We come to buy some cars, and they couldn't get their head around it at all. But it was a lot of fun, we had a lot of fun. And then I eventually self-taught myself more and more, and started to write songs, and then decided that I was going to explore my career on the other side of the fence, to go in more for production and writing.
All right, well, we're definitely going to come to that, obviously, but what I can tell you is in the book there are quite a lot of stories about David and Adam Faith, and some of them very heavily edited, because I know the real stories. But no, there's lots of stories that can be written in there, and they are in there. But Adam Faith wasn't his real name, was it?
No, Terry Nellums. Terry Nellums Wright.
And you knew him as Terry, so you used to...
He was Tell to me. Yeah.
Call him Terry.
Yeah.
So, so then, obviously, you found Leo Sayer. How did that happen?
Yeah, as I say, I decided to go onto the other side of the business and look for talent. And as I say, I was writing songs back then, and I held an audition in Brighton. It was in August, I remember it very well. It was a beautiful sunny day in August, on a Saturday, and I put an ad in the local paper to say I was looking for talent. What I didn't do, I made a major boo-boo, I didn't say, oh, music, just music talent. So when I came to do this audition, I tell you, I was doing what Simon Cowell is doing now, I was doing back then, on a much smaller scale, I may add, but I had this theatre in Brighton called the Pavilion Theatre, and I'd hired it, and I got all these people that were coming along, and I had a clipboard and sat there at a desk, and they'd come on one by one, and as I say, I made the big mistake of not saying it was music I was looking for, music artists, and instead I got guys turning up doing farmyard noises and all sorts, and I thought, oh my God, I've made a mistake. Yeah. So by the time Leo came on, in fact, his real name was Gerard Sayer, and the band was called Patches. By the time they came on stage, I'd had a migraine by then, going through all this, And what was really, really quite neat was that the door of the theatre was left open, and the public outside were hearing all this noise coming from the... They'd started to wander in, and before I knew it, I looked round, and I had a whole audience sitting there. They'd all just walked in.
It's just like tonight.
Just like now.
Just like now, yeah.
And I thought to myself at the time, do I tell people I'm sorry, this is a closed audition, you have to leave, I'm sorry. And I thought, no. At the end of the day, if I do discover something here, these are the people that are going to be buying it. So it's good to have their reaction. It was helping me. I guess the same thing happens on British Talent. The audience reaction could be so overwhelming sometimes that it influences the judges, I suppose.
Yeah. So what
that's what
happened?
happened. He came on with the band, and I remember very clearly. The songs were very. They were not really commercial, very bluesy type stuff. And the band were playing, and then this voice, and I heard this voice, and I thought, my God, where's that coming from? And I'm looking around the band, and it's not the drummer, it's not the guitar, where's it coming from? And then this little figure with this mop of hair walks on the stage like a Shakespearean actor. And he's singing, and he's opening, and he's singing, and I think, my God, this is unique. There's something so unique. This guy's voice is something special. I knew that, I just knew it. The band, but him, there was no doubt. And so I signed them up. I signed 2 people up at that audition. There was him and a blind pianist called Billy Jones. Oh God, yeah. I tell you, it was pretty wacky.
You didn't keep any of the ones with the farmyard noises. Then.
Oh God, no. But wonderful with Billy Jones, by the way. It was a great keyboard player. It was like a white Ray Charles, really, fantastic talent. But he was like so obsessed with women, and he could smell them coming from a mile away. And he'd go, "There's a woman walking in the room now," because he could smell the perfume and everything. So I said, "Can you just concentrate on playing it?" But even though he was off with the birds there, literally. So yeah, and Leo, Jerry, we did the first recording was a song that I'd written called "Living in America," and not the James Brown one I made. He came with that later, but anyway, there you go. And we recorded that. We got a record deal with Warner Brothers, I think it was, at the time. And it was all under the name of Patches, and I got together with Adam and we said, you know, this is obvious that this kid is the star, not this band. And Adam, in his wisdom, would do his normal manipulation. In fact, if you ever see the film Stardust, you should watch it, because in that, oh, you've seen it, right? You know, he took over the Ringo role, which was Mike, the manager for David Essex. And in that film, you'll see that when they've got to get rid of a member of the band, he'll take them for a drink, and you know they're not coming back. You know, as soon as they go out for a drink with him, there's no way they're gonna be there. So that same character was in real life. That's what he was like. He
That's
would
exactly what he
manipulate
was like.
situations. Yeah, he's very good at that. And so the decision was made that, yeah, well, let's break him out of the band and concentrate on him as a solo act. And I've always had a sort of a marketing head on me, and I thought, Gerard? That's not a very rock and roll name, is it, Gerard? The Sayer thing, maybe, yeah, whatever. But Gerard, no. So...
We haven't got any Gerards here, have we?
Well, it wasn't very rock and roll.
That's fine, you're okay.
You mean Jerry Rafferty didn't make it?
So I looked in that same local paper, and I was reading the astrological signs, and there was a drawing of each sign, you know, Sagittarius, Capricorn, whatever. And then there was Leo, and it was a lion, with the mane of a lion. I thought, Leo, that's it.
Sorry for asking, being intrusive. Where did you think you were going to go with your involvement in Leo's sound?
Well, I knew I had something very special, as I say, you know, with a voice like that. And then, you know, the voice alone is not enough. You've got to have the chemistry of having the songs and the music. So we did that first record, which was fine. But then him and I started to write together. I had this little upright piano in my apartment in Brighton, and he'd come every day, and we would write. But just to go back on the name thing there. So what happened? He came one day, and I said, okay, we're going to go meet Adam, and talk about what we're going to be doing. And when we were in that meeting, I said, by the way, we're going to change your name. And he said, what? I said, yeah, you're not going to be Gerard anymore. You're going to be Leo. And he went, oh, no, I don't want, no. He didn't want to know about it at all. Adam said, what a brilliant idea, what a great name. He said, that's it, you're going to be Leo Sayer. And he wasn't too happy about it, Leo. And he said, well, Adam said, well, listen, mate, this is quite simple. If you don't agree and you don't answer the name, we're going to just ignore you. So he sort of pushed him into it. Anyway, now he doesn't think of himself as anything else but Leo.
What did you call him? As years went by, what did you used to call him?
I call him Leo now. I call him Leo. I Jerry in the very early days, but Leo, yeah, is always will be.
And of course, Adam had already changed his name, so
well,
obviously that was for a reason as well.
Well, no, that was through his manager that did that, Evie Taylor, yeah. Calling him Adam, and then the faith bit. I don't know how that worked, but
Can I ask, you started as a drummer. How did you make the leap to being a pianist and a songwriter? Where did that come from if you were a drummer?
Well, the interesting thing about that was that when I did taught myself the piano, and those songs like The Show Must Go On and all that, you'll hear they're very rhythmically.
But getting hold of a piano, it's not easy.
No, I had an
Back in
old
the 60s,
upright that my grandfather
it's
had
not
given.
like an electric Casio you can get today.
Yeah, well, not in those days. So no, I had this little upright that my grandfather had given me, and that's what I used to go to and bang out. And yeah, as I say, you can't write songs on the drum kit, can you?
No.
So, but I was always very strong at having melodies in my head and all that. And as I say, there was no other way of getting it out there, and unless you learn an instrument, unless you can play an instrument. But I have to say, in my defence, that I don't read or write music at all, and nor does Paul McCartney. He can't read or write a note of music, and he hasn't done too bad, has he? So
You can write a little bit.
he's the first billionaire rock star apparently from this week.
Yeah.
Hit billion. But yeah, and there are others. I think you find the Bee Gees are the same. One doesn't necessarily have to go with another. In fact, when you I went to Adam and I said, oh, you know what, I think I should have piano lessons here. He said, no, you don't. I said, why? He said, because they'll teach you all the rudiments of music and what you shouldn't do and what you should do. He said, the beauty of what you're doing, it's all coming natural. It's just coming out of you. So you just let it be and just go with it. And that's what happened. And he was quite strong on saying, no, you don't go and learn. You think it'd be the natural thing to do is go and learn your craft, wouldn't you, like that? But
So you play by ear?
yeah.
I love the way you said, let it be.
Yeah.
So,
You didn't write that, did you?
no. So, that's where the idea came from, obviously. So, so you've now got Leo Sayer, and how did you get to the point where you wrote a hit song for him? Because I take it that was your first hit. Was with Leo or
Yeah,
with Adam?
no. At that period, when we were starting to write together, as I say, he'd come every day with his little book of lyrics, because that was his thing, and I'd be writing melodies from the night before, and I'd say, listen, I've got this one. He'd think, oh, yeah. And he'd go to the book. It was quite uncanny. He'd go to the book, and 9 times out of 10, the lyrics that, or it's really basically poetry, lyric, would fit. It was quite uncanny. To say, you know, when you're on a roll or on the momentum of something happening with chemistry, it's like it's got a force of its own, and you just, that's what I use that term again. You let it be. You go with it, you know, and don't fight it. You know, just let it happen, and that's exactly what happened there. Now, as a kid, a television show that influenced me a lot, because I always had a fascination for it, was Circus Boy. I don't think any of you here would know that, but a young guy called Mickey Dolenz was Circus Boy.
You know, the drummer of the Monkees, yeah?
And I used to watch that because I love circus. It was a thing with me. So when we did start writing these songs together, and me playing the piano in a very rhythmic way, you know, it all started to evolve. And I also remember that my father was a big Al Jolson fan, and Al Jolson used to wear the white gloves and all that. And I went out and bought these pair of white gloves because for Leo, and he turned up one day and I said, I've got these gloves. What's all this about? And I said, because I used to watch him at the piano. He used to stand next to me. He'd always be with the hands, just like Joe Cocker used to, you know. So I thought, there's something in this with circus, and with his animation of him and the voice and then the music, and it all started to marry and made sense. And so The Show Must Go On really was like at the beginning of that.
And that was the first hit.
And that's why if you listen to the record, at the beginning of it, there's, on the full version, there's it opens with a fairground organ. There was an antique dealer in Brighton called David Hawkins who had a big fairground organ in his yard, and I got to know that, and I arranged with him to go up there and record the organ, because he would switch it on, and believe me, it was like full on with the bells and the whistles and the colours, and it was magnificent. And I stand in there with a tape recorder, and I'm recording it, and it plays the famous circus theme, which is Entry of the Gladiators, da, 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 you know. So I've recorded this, and that's what you're hearing on that record. That's the recording that I made. And but so it was all that whole theatrical thing around circus. So The Show Must Go On was the beginning of it, with Leo's first album, which was called Silver Bird, and there's some.
How old was you then, by the way?
Me? Well, this was in 1973.
Okay.
I've got to work that out. What was I, 20 something? I don't know. Was I? I don't know.
I don't know, what are you asking me?
I'm not very good with maths. Yeah, I was young anyway, yeah.
Quite good.
So,
It's quite good.
it's not bad, is it?
No.
I don't know what I was doing at that age, and it wasn't writing hit songs.
No.
So, how did this must have been a life changer for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, the thing back then, obviously, you know, Top of the Pops, I mean, 12, 15 million people used to watch that show. I mean, you knew if you were going to be on Top of the Pops, you'd have a hit record by the next day, you know. But what really got it for me, you know, the dream is always, oh, I've got to hear the song on the radio, you've got to hear your record on the radio, you know, and because when you do hear it for the first time, it is an enormous buzz. You think, you know, it's like the ultimate in recognition of your work, isn't it? The public have said, yeah, we like that, and we bought it, right? And there it is, going up the charts, and you're hearing it on the radio, you think, wow, this is it, isn't it? This is it. And it's nothing to do with money. Leo and I never sat there for 1 second thinking, we're writing this song here to earn money. It was never the motivation with us, it was the passion and the love of wanting to be in music and the fun of it and everything. And
Didn't turn it down though, did you? Be honest.
oh no, well, it's much deserved. You know,
Exactly, yeah.
But so anyway, so as I say, hearing it on the radio was the big thing that you dream of, hearing it before you could even think of Top of the Pops. But what really brought it home to me, and I do talk about it in this book here, is that my apartment that we used to be in every day, it was in the centre of Brighton, right opposite this, what was an old church was converted into a club called Sloopy's, and it was literally across the road, right? So, which was quite convenient because they used to have all these fun nights over there, so we would often...
He spent quite a lot of time in clubs, by the way, you can read it in here.
I was walking over to that club. The record had been on the radio and it started to do its thing. But it wasn't The Show Must Go On. That was never the first record that came out of the thing. Because by then we'd been introduced to Roger Daltrey. He heard what we were recording because we used his place. And that's when he asked us to write and record him. And his album came out before Leo's album. So Giving It All Away was actually the first hit record.
That's the first, was it?
And so when that was on the radio and I'd gone over to this club this particular Saturday night and I'm walking up the sort of alleyway into the club and there were two drunken sailors walking towards me and completely off their tree. They didn't know me from Adam.
Tell he lives on the south coast.
And they were arm in arm, these two guys, and I'm walking towards them and they were singing. And they're going, I'm just a boy, giving it all. And I thought, that's really it. It's not being on the radio, it's not Top of the Pops, it's these two drunken sailors.
Fantastic
because that to me
moment
was the
in
ultimate
singing.
in how you connected with the public. You
Yeah.
know? So that meant a lot to me, hearing those two guys singing that.
So you've been performing, and you said it was around 1973, so I'm taking it this is, as Roger Daltrey left The Who?
No, he never left The Who. He never left.
But he
He's
just
still
did.
never left The Who, has he?
No, he's still not, no.
They
But
were quiet.
he was doing his own thing as well as being
Oh,
the...
yeah. They all thought it was a bit strange, him doing a solo album, but he wanted to do a solo album because he didn't want to be doing a solo album singing things like Townsend songs, you know,
Yeah.
Who type relate. He wanted to go a completely different direction. And when he heard what we were doing, that made a lot of sense to him. He could see the theatrics in it and the melodies and all that, and that's what did it. In fact, we wrote, amongst those first bunch of songs, Giving It All Away being the main one, the other one that was in there was One Man Band. That was written for Roger.
It was written for Roger and not for Leo.
Yes, which caused problems down the line.
Oh, go on, tell us about that.
It's all in there.
Oh, I know, you tell us a little bit about it. They're going to buy it anyway, so...
It was supposed to be his follow-up to Giving It All Away. It's going to be released. In fact, we did two versions on his album. One was him playing like a busker, and you'll hear a car zooming by with a car horn sounding as it's driven past. Well, that was our roadie. He did that, and because we were recording all this stuff. But what we did with Roger one day when we were promoting the album, we were in the middle of London. I think it was outside Piccadilly Tube Station. And he sat on the floor, he had a pea cap on, with the acoustic guitar, and he's singing One Man Band, right? And the people are coming off of the tube, and they're walking, but they don't even realise it's Roger Daltrey. And some of them are throwing money in the hat and everything. It was bizarre.
That's fantastic.
But it was like, yeah, okay, I mean, it'd be good if somebody did recognise it, because that would be all part of the fun of it. But yeah, he wanted to do it because he loved the idea. He's like that, Roger, you know.
Yeah, he's still like that today, is he?
Oh yeah, he's still a big kid, isn't he?
That's
Yeah.
good
Like
to
we all
know. That's good to know. So I think everyone here can see that you are very passionate about music. You still love your music, and I know that about that time that not only were you writing, but you were also still performing. And in 1974. You had your own album out called David Courtney's First Day. So tell us a little bit about that, but also about how you feel about the difference between you felt about the difference between producing, songwriting, and performing.
Well, when you say performing, you mean recording your own album?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it was a natural thing that you would want to do. You know, you think, okay, I've done it for Lee, I've done it for Roger. You know, I've got more to say, and I'd like to say. But I have to say, and I've been very privileged over the years to have worked with some of these great artists and people like Roger and Leo, and that. They've got such tremendous voices, you know, and I don't have that. You know, I'm a songwriter and I can do what I do, but I don't profess for 1 second. I'd love to be able to do it. In fact, Adam used to say to me, he said, you know, there's only one problem with this whole thing. I said, what's that? He said, the voice is in the wrong body. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, if it had been his voice in your body, he said, we could have done a lot more with different things. And he never really related to Leo that great, you know.
I was going to say, didn't say that to Leo, did he?
Cup of tea. You know, the laughs that I had with Adam, because we were on a par. But Leo was in a different place, you know, he's a different sort of character. So him saying that was quite a funny thing to say. I thought, well, I hope Leo doesn't hear this, you know.
So all this is going on in the UK. And obviously now you're writing hits in the UK, your life has changed an awful lot. So was it about this time that you started trying to push your expertise in the US and Australia, because you went out there for
well, with that album, so I went full tilt out on that album. I got signed by EMI Records, and I had got together with a guy another great producer and arranger called Andrew Powell. He did Kate Bush, all that stuff, and Pilot, and all those records you probably remember. And Andrew and I were great buddies, and he did a lot of the arrangements on the Leo Just a Boy album, like with songs like Train and even One Man Band, Leo's version of One Man Band. So Andrew and I had a great relationship, and when it came time for me to do my album, I said, listen, as much as I've been the producer, I'd like to co-produce this, because you've got to step away from yourself, and it's very hard to be that critical on yourself. You need another set of ears, and so he was the perfect person to be doing that with. And luckily enough, I'd also got to know and became great friends with a guy called Jeff Emmerich, who was an engineer who was with the Beatles all the way through from the get-go, really, right the way through to the end there, and Pepper and all those albums. Jeff did them all, and he came on board with me, and he engineered my album. So I was in really good company, you know, with all these guys around me, and great session guys I brought in, people like Albert Lee and guitar, and you know. And we had a lot of fun, but it was an expensive album. We recorded it in Air Studios in Oxford Street, and it was the studio which was owned by George Martin, the Beatles, and it was above Topshop in Oxford Street, and so many acts used to record there. It was fantastic because you'd walk down the corridor, and as you pass the studio, you'd hear, oh, it's Roxy music coming out there in there. You could hear that, right? And you go the next one, oh, it's Mark Bolan, is in that. So it was a strange but wonderful environment. One funny one was do you remember that band Sparks? Do you remember them?
Yeah.
This town ain't big enough for the boat ride.
Yeah.
And he used to stand in front of that keyboard with a little moustache, remember? And
It's Ron and Russell Mail, wasn't it? Yeah.
So I remember going in the bathroom, and then he walked in, and I'm standing at the urinal, and he's standing next to me. Exactly the same pose as what he did. and I'm going, oh, this is bizarre. This is weird. And he didn't say a word. There was no conversation. Literally, it's just there. And I thought, oh, this is strange. But anyway, it was a great atmosphere up there with all these guys, and also they have what they call tape operators. They're usually the young boys that are learning on the job, and they're controlling the tape machines. And the two tape ops that we had on our session, one was the son of Spike Milligan, and the other one was the son of Peter Sellers. And these were as bad as their fathers, really. And around that top shop, if you go past, you can still see it today, big old concrete building, you know. But there's a ledge that goes all the way around that building there. And these two would play chicken run, running around the ledge. And you're up there, and they're running, jeez, what's going on?
Well, that's David doesn't know this, but that's a member of my family, because I'm actually the great nephew of Peter Sellers. So yeah, that would have been a relation of mine. But he cut my family off, which is why I'm not as rich as David. So
we recorded the album there, and then another great story. Again, it's in the book, so I won't tell too much of it. But in my wisdom, I said, I want to do a version of Silverberg, which was only ever written, if you listen to the original album, it's just on the piano with me and Leo, and he's just going do 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 do, you know, just humming it away. I thought, it's such a great melody, I'd love to do something of that on my solo album. So I got together with Andrew and I said, why don't we do an arrangement, a special arrangement of it? And so he did. And if you listen to it, there's a 100-piece orchestra up there, a choir and a canon. And we recorded it at Abbey Road in #1, where they did Day in a Life and all those classics recordings. And again, I remember it so clearly. There's a 100-piece orchestra there. Francis Monkman, who was the keyboard player in Sky, if you remember the band Sky, he was on piano. And there's a choir, and there's the whole thing. And so, you have to remember this was during the time of the IRA bombings in London, so everybody was always a bit nervous, you know. But nobody knew, including myself, that Andrew had written in the score about there was going to be a cannon that was going to be fired at a certain point in this song, just like they use in the 1812 overture, Beethoven's 1812 overture. You'll hear a cannon. Well, what they are, they're not actually a cannon. They are these charges that they set off. So there's this guy, I'm trying to remember his surname, but he's Tristan. He was also in Sky, and he was behind these screens. And
Tristan Fry.
Tristan Fry, you got it, yes. Very good. And he was behind these screens, and I didn't know about it. And Andrew's standing at this rostrum, conducting the orchestra, and there's all these guys there. And it comes to that point in the song where the cat goes off. Well, Jeff Emmerich, he didn't know what had hit him. The first 4 rows of the orchestra collapsed, and they're all ducking, because they thought it was a IRA bombing. So they were furious. The guy who was the leader of the orchestra came into the control room and he said, we're not playing with that, I'm sorry, because they all stopped, obviously. And he said, you're going to have to overdub it, because we can't play with that. It put everybody in total shock. It was really, but you know, those stories, you know, they all come about by accident. They're nothing's planned, you know, it just happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories in this book, I must say, that they're not contrived, are they? They're a lot of things have just happened by accident.
Well, I don't know if it's on there now, but there's a phrase that I use to describe this book, and it's nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly the way it happened.
Yeah, there's some very weird stuff in this book as well, worth reading. Right, I said there was going to be a lot of name dropping because of all the people that that David's worked with. So I'm just going to mention a few of them now. Obviously, we've talked about Roger Daltrey, and you've worked with Paul McCartney, Dave Gilmour as well, Jimmy Page, Gene Pitney, Eric Clapton, Dollar, and you wrote Who Were You With in the Moonlight?
I
for
wrote
Dollar.
their first two hits, Shooting Star and
Shooting Star and yeah. So you must have been mixing with all these people quite a bit. I know.
Well, you do it. It's your, you know, it's your life. That's the circle you're in. You know, you're between the clubs and the bars that you all hang out in. Everybody gets to know everybody. You know, other producers, other artists. You know. Yeah.
And bringing them together as well. I'm not sure if anybody, when you watched the promo that you saw earlier before we started this interview, Stuck in the Middle with You. I don't think many people would remember that Adam Faith did a duet with Roger Daltrey, and that was actually recorded by them as well as Jerry Rafferty.
Yeah,
Was that
later
before
on.
Steelerswood?
Excuse me?
Was that before Steelerswood?
No, after. In fact, I was asked to produce a guy called Joe Egan and Jerry Rafferty were Steelers World.
Yeah.
In fact, it was an earlier band than Steelers World, and there were three in it, and the other member was Billy Connolly, and they were called the Humble Bums.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the Humble Bums, because they did the folk clubs, didn't they?
Yeah, that's it. And Joe, a wonderful, wonderful person, Joe. He's got his voice and Jerry's are like almost identical. So when there's that blend and that harmony blend, which Lennon McCartney had that blend, they were influenced by the Everly Brothers because they had that special blend because they were brothers. There's something in the vocal cords that creates that.
Like the Bee Gees. Yeah. Like
It's
the Bee Gees.
quite extraordinary, yeah. And so Joe, I did 2 albums with Joe Egan, and when I came to do what was turned out to be Adam's very last album called Midnight Postcards, I said to him, why don't we do a version Stuck in the Middle with You, and get Roger to come in and be the first time you two have ever sung together. So, and it worked. It was great. It put me on top of the bus in Brighton, and they were going and singing it.
Is Roger credited?
Is Roger what?
Is Roger credited on that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, on the
Never
Midnight
seen him do
Postcards
that.
album, he would be, I think, yeah. I think, who else did we have on there? We had Graham Lyle. You remember Gallagher and Lyle? Yeah. And he used to play fantastic ukulele and all that, as he did with that's another song we covered.
When I'm Dead and Gone.
Yeah, well, we covered that as well, Adam. Yeah, we did that, When I'm Dead and Gone. Great record. McGuinness Flynn, I think, so that was the reason why we did that. That was doing a cover, really, basically, yeah.
This is taking a lot of people down memory lane, I hope. But did you have a little bit of a break? Because it wasn't until 2005 that you released previously unheard material on Shooting Star and Midsummer Madness.
The reason being, Shooting Star's another whole story. There's a whole chapter in there about that and what happened with that. Not the Dollar bit. That was the beginning of it. But then when I went on to America and recorded an album, Shooting Star, the one you're referring to, and there was a reason why that didn't come out until later. But I did my second solo album, which was called Midsummer Madness. I recorded in the Chateau de Hérouville in France, which is later, you probably would know it as the Honky Chateau. If you remember, Elton John had an album called the Honky Chateau because he recorded there. Rick Wakeman did his there. In fact, he did an album called No Earthly Connection. And when we got to use the studio, we found out why, because the French are not very good with their electronics. You go and touch the desk, and then things would be going on, and then we'd hear, suddenly you're listening back to your track, and you're hearing this, what the hell is that? And they said, oh, yes, we've got a bit of an earthing problem here, because although the studio was in a separate building to the main chateau, he said it's the chef in the kitchen who's using a mixer. He's using a food mixer, and it's come through. We go, we can't work with this. What's going on here? But I used to have different problems with the we used to use French studios, and that was one of them. But that chateau. Oh, when I saw Rick Wakeman many years later, I said to him, I know why you called the album No Earthly Connection. He said, yeah, because he had nightmares there as well.
That's why he did it.
And it was also haunted. I think it was Chopin that haunted. In the middle of the night, where you're trying to sleep and you're hearing a piano playing, what is that? What's going on? And we asked the next morning, we heard this piano last night. That's the ghost of Chopin. He said, really? He said, yeah, in the studio where we've been recording. And I think it was, Brian Eno. I think he had the same experience when he went there. But while we were there, what was interesting, while we were there, and I'll lead to the reason why that album never came out until later, was while we were there, David Bowie and Iggy Pop turned up. As they do, right? They turn up. And he stayed for the two of them stayed for the whole week while we were there, and they were watching us recording, and they're just sitting there, we're all having dinners and lunches together, and fun, He's an interesting guy, Bowie, very interesting. And so, and Iggy Pop, a great laugh, a lovely guy. And so that was something quite magic. Again, to say, you couldn't plan these things, they just happen. And that's what's so wonderful about, I think, being in this business. You don't know what's coming around the corner. Hopefully it's not a train.
Well, I certainly didn't know that Chopin knew how to use a food mixer.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on to you being a bit of a businessman as well, the Walk of Fame. Tell us a little bit about the Walk of Fame, because you bought the UK rights to the Walk of Fame, which obviously is well known in the States, but you bought it for not only music but football as well.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't buy it. What actually happened was, I was living in LA for 7 years, and Leo and I were working. I was working with him, and so many great musicians.
What year was that, by the way?
That was in I moved there in '79, and we did, I think 1980, we got back together, we reunited when he'd come over to America to live as well, and we reunited and we did this album called Here. And on that album, it's not an album that was ever that really popular over here, but you should listen to it because the musicianship on that album is incredible. The lineup of people like Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn were the original Blues Brothers band. Yeah. They were in Booker T and the MGs.
In the middle.
Wonderful. And Cropper wrote Dock of the Bay, I think it was. Yeah. And not My Girl, no, I think that was written by Smokey Robinson, I think. Anyway. But the musicians on that album, I mean, the boys from Toto and a Little River Band, and it was amazing to work with. Again, you're working with the heroes, the guys you've listened to all these years, Booker T and the MGs, and now you're working with them, and you're the producer. So they're all saying, what do you want us to do, and all that. Yeah, it's quite something. So my time in LA was very, very, very good.
Where were you recording?
Where?
Where?
Where did you say?
Yeah, where?
The old Sunset Sound.
Okay.
Which is a famous studio on Sunset Boulevard there.
Vegas.
So,
and
how did that lead to the Walk of Fame then?
Oh right, sorry. Because every day.
So I love the fact that you're going off tangent. It's brilliant, but yeah, see, definitely.
No, love it.
Passed through Hollywood on my way there, and the Walk of Fame, the famous Hollywood Walk of Fame, and I was always fascinated with it. And I thought, what I liked about America and Americans is that they shout from the rooftop. Whether it's something good or bad or whatever, they'll go for it. They don't see a brick wall, and I love that. I mean, over here, we're so cautious. Keep quiet, keep it down, don't rock the boat, keep it. But over there, they're gung ho, and I thought, why don't we do something like that back in England? Why don't we have a Walk of Fame? We've got more to celebrate than what they do, really. When you think of all the things that have come out of this country, and so I thought, well, when I do get home, I'm gonna look into it. I mentioned it to Leo. He thought I was mad, so I said, well, it's just something that's in my head, and I'm gonna see if I can make it work. So when I did return home, I had the insight. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I managed to get the trademark. And I'd never done a trademark in my life, you know. And but I managed to get it. And Hollywood sort of came at me originally saying, you can't do this because we own the Walk of Fame. And I didn't disagree. I said, yeah, you do. But in Hollywood, but you don't own it in the UK because I've got it. Which to this day, I think they still spit bullets because of it. But I wanted to do it. And so I introduced the first one in my hometown of Brighton, because you probably know this, but the one thing that Brighton is known for many things, but one thing in particular is that it's sort of the LA of England in the amount of stars that live there, the rich and famous and all that sort of thing, of the community there. It has been since the years of Max Miller, who was the greatest, one of the great comedians of all time, and Sir Laurence Olivier. They all lived, you know, it was one of those things. So I thought, if I'm going to do it, there's no better place to go and do it there. So through connections, I managed to get it through and do it at the, and it was laid down originally at the Brighton Marina. And we inducted 100 people, I think it was. And on that night, my wife, Manon, over there, she was the organizer of the event on the night, the big marquee tent. She did a fantastic job and got caterers in. I had Leo and the band playing. And what was wonderful about it is all the people that had been nominated and inducted, because we put it open to the public to nominate, unlike Hollywood, I may add. You probably don't know this, but the plaques in Hollywood, they charge them $50,000 to have a plaque in the ground, wow, which is usually paid for by the film company or the record company. I thought, there's no way I'm going to introduce that idea to this country, because they'll kick you out the door. So I said, no, do it. The constitution should be that the public should vote. Put forward nominees and let them vote, of which we did. So 100, we inducted 100 for the launch, and out of that 100, 75 of them were living at the time. Some have dropped off since. And out of that 75, we had 37 of them turn up. And what was so unique about it is it wasn't just music people, there was sports, you know, Chris Eubank was there, and Des Lynam, and, because they're all Brighton connected, you see. And then we had, you know, famous author like James Herbert, who wrote all the horror stories, and even people like this one I'll bring memories back to you. Do you remember Alexandra Bastido? The Champions? Do you remember the series, The Champions?
In the 60s.
Yeah. She was a Hove girl, so she came. Anyway, there were all these different people there on the night, and it was wonderful to see them all meeting each other more or less for the first time, because they'd never normally come into contact, because they're all in different pockets, aren't they? You know, sports and... I remember a conversation with Eubank when he said, I hope you've got my title right on the plaque. And I said, oh, have I missed something? Are you a CBE or something? And he said, no, I'm Lord of Brighton. But that's like a red rag to me, because I was born and bred there, he wasn't.
He bought the title.
He bought the title. And that's what I said to him, Chris, I said, give me a break. I can't put that on. They said, you bought it. No, that's not for real.
Yeah, I've met Chris on a number of occasions, and there was a point where he was driving around in a huge, great lorry, big truck, and wearing a monocle and riding boots, and he said to me once, he said everywhere I go and I park this truck, I get a ticket. And I said, well, why do you do it then? He said, because it keeps people talking about me. And that's the reason he did it, hence the fact he bought the title Lord of Brighton.
Which he doesn't own anymore.
He doesn't. So, can you tell everybody where they can go now to go to these Walks of Fame? Because you've also got the football one as well.
Then we did the Bristol Walk of Fame, which was located in Bristol Zoo, which is at the time was noted to be the oldest zoo in the world, I believe. The problem there was, and we had the good and the great in Bristol now, I mean, from Banksy to Sir David Attenborough to even organisations like Concord, based in Bristol, and what was it, the SS Britain, and yeah, all those, and you know the guys that do those balloons, those wonderful, you know. Anyway, and then we had the Wurzels were there, and it was, and Gary Mabbott. Do you remember Gary Mabbott?
Of course, yeah.
Spurs.
Yeah.
Anyway, Acker Bilk. Again, the array of people was extraordinary. You know, the cross section. So we did one in Bristol, which was great, except for the fact that the public could only see the Walk of Fame in Bristol if they had paid to go into the zoo. So that didn't really work. So we're going to revisit somewhere down the line, I think. Yeah. And they've now moved the zoo. I believe they've actually closed the zoo, selling off the land, and they've opened up like a safari park or something.
Oh right. Yeah.
So and then we did another one in. We did the Football Walk of Fame.
That's in Manchester.
In Manchester, in Cathedral Gardens, outside of the National Football Museum.
National Football Museum. I came to that, yeah. And
that came about from a collaboration with myself and a mutual friend called Paul Trevelyan, who's the artist.
Yeah.
9 years of age, isn't
he is. Yeah. We look after Paul. We agent his. We agent his books as well. He can still draw a straight line with a ruler, and the best thing he's ever done is to introduce me to David Courtney.
He was in top Larkspur's ground last year.
Yeah, he was.
Time guest.
Yeah, and he was also one
He's
of
mad
the.
As a box of frogs.
He is as mad as a box of frogs, and I would bring him.
What are you alluding to? This is a Spurs fan.
we both are, but no, Paul Trevelyan is if you go onto the In the Fox's Den YouTube channel. I interview Paul, and this interview is actually going to be on that channel as well if you want to see it again. But you'll see that my interview with Paul Trevelyan, I had a hard time keeping it down to below 6 hours. Actually, it was edited by this man here, and we had to edit it down quite a lot. It's very, very difficult to stop it. But he's amazing for 90 years of age. Yeah. He's still working. He's never going to stop working. Yeah.
David, what are you most proud of?
Well, above and beyond children, having a beautiful wife and that. On a personal level.
What are you most proud of?
I would say, well, look, discovering Leo was quite a thing for me, you know, because it really started off a whole chapter in my life, you know. So that was a very important moment in time. Yeah, geez. You know, is it your first hit record? Is it, you know, it's...
Try the mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
He was deep in thought then.
Yeah. As I say, apart from your first hit record and discovering him, yeah, of course, that was a very important time. In fact,
is there a song or a moment that you thought, wow, that
oh yeah, I tell you that, yeah, that came about when we were doing that first album, Silverbird, and that's got so many great memories, that album, because we recorded the first tracks at the Manor, which was owned by Richard Branson, and the boy that did our engineering then had just finished an album called Tubular Bells, and he came straight off of that and came on to ours, which was great. And we had some good musicians on that album as well.
Made Virgin, didn't it?
Yeah.
Made Virgin.
It did, yeah.
And on the day we arrived there, Branson invited us to his wedding because he was having his wedding there. So we're not going to get any work done today. So we were at the wedding reception with the Bonzo Dog Toot our bag. Lex Larry Smith and all those guys. Anyway, yeah, and so the important moment came with Silverbird when we were doing the song Why Is Everybody Going Home, which has always been probably one of my most favourite songs out of all the ones that we'd written. It's a lovely song, and he sings it beautifully. And we recorded, Adam and I went to a studio in London called Nova, I think it was called, Nova. And we did the orchestra there conducted by a man, scored and conducted by a man called Dale Newman, who'd done all the Cat Stevens, Tea for a Tiller Man, and all those wonderful albums. And I remember standing, this is my first experience ever for being close up near to an orchestra in a room. And when they start up, it's like,
Powerful.
my God. And it's your song and your music, and you hear this, and it's like, well, that's it. I could die and go to heaven right now, because that for me was it.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was the real eureka moment for me. I thought, if nothing happens from this moment on beyond here, I've lived and experienced this. And
That's brilliant. And I have to say, you two guys, you have no idea how many of your questions I've had to cross off from here, because I was going, no, it's fine. I don't mind who asks them. But no, thank you for. No, it's great that you're showing interest, and we will open this up at the end. I'm going to try and wrap it up now, though. I just quickly wanted to mention, was it Marina Kapuro, because that resulted in an award for you.
Yeah, well, she's a Russian diva. It's a great singer. She's a lovely lady. Has come over to England 2 or 3 times, and we struck up a relationship, at a professional level that was very, very special. And I said to her, how would you fancy if I write an album for you and you record it in Russia? Not in Russian, but in Russia, in St. Petersburg, where they come from. And this was obviously prior to what's gone on in Ukraine and all that. And even then, when I would talk to her, they were very anti-Putin. But none of them can say anything, can they? So, but anyway, so we did this album together called Matinee, and it did very well. And to the extent where I was suddenly told, "Oh, you won an award." Oh, really? I said, yes, you're going to be the first British composer to win this Russian award in St. Petersburg. It's a big award called the Tchaikovskaya Award, and it's like their gold thing. And really? How's this all happen? She said, will you be able to come over? And yeah, okay, I'm going to try and do that. We couldn't get there in the end, so somebody else had to pick up the award for me and bring it back. But it's something that I thought, wow, this came out of left field. Again, none of these things are planned, are they? You don't know what's coming at you, and that's the wonderful surprise about it all. So I got the award, and I feel very honoured that it's just a damn shame that things have happened the way it happened. And I thought, at one point, I've got to get Marina over here. I don't know how the media will, if they'll buy into this, but my take on it would be, look, forget about what's all going on out there, that the power of music is a language that has got nothing to do with all of this, and there's your communication. All this other crap that's going on really is, and you just listen to the purity of music and artists coming together, you think, what's going on here? What's all that about? But of course it's all politics and it's power and all those things that go with it.
What's your opinion of Roger Daltrey? I think he's great. But...
He speaks well of you as well.
I've been to a couple of his concerts.
Yeah, he's great. He's doing his own tours now.
Contact,
Oh yeah, well in fact, I'm very privileged to say he's the godfather of our daughter.
Wow.
And so we've known each other now for a long, long time, and we do see each other. And recently he's been back on the road there with The Who, but now he's also doing his own tours with his own band. And I saw him when he came to Brighton with his band, and Brighton Centre, and we were there on that night. That was great. And hearing him singing, giving it all away.
He's got a trout farm as well, hasn't he?
He's got a trout farm, and he's opened a craft and craft beer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But he's such a he's tactile man, Roger. He's not, he loves using his hands, and that house that he's lived in all these years in Sussex.
Incredible, isn't he, really?
Yeah, he stripped all the wood, all the panelling, all that wood panelling, he'd stripped it all and varnished it all. And then he dug the trout farm. He got a digger in and he did
He did.
Oh,
that.
he's
I
very
didn't know
like
that.
that. What is a really strange story about Roger is that there he is, one of the biggest rock superstars in the world, and his hobby at the time, before he built the trout farm, was building dolls' houses.
Oh, wow.
Now you think, a rock star building a doll's house? Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? But yeah, that's the sort of guy he
Can't
is.
imagine why they didn't come out.
I know. I don't know if Townsend ought to give him a lot of stick.
I can also tell you that George Michael collected teddy bears and had a massive, great teddy bear collection.
Well, and of course now Roger has got the most magnificent train set in his
Oh,
loft.
don't do that.
And I say train set, and that's
like Rod Stewart.
Pete Waterman.
well, him
as
and
well.
Rod, they're rivals when it comes to this, the train thing. Oh yeah, but it's huge, and he's built these mountains, and there's cable cars, and there's oh my God, how do you do all this? You know, the patience you've got to have to.
Or money.
Not for me. I'm no good at DIY. I'm useless.
Well, we've come up to date with all of them. So let's come up to date with you. First of all, Leo Sayers now living in Australia, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been there for about 4 or 5 years. I moved out there before him. I was out there for 3 years. Not as a convict. When you think, well, we sent all the convicts there, right?
Yeah.
They're living in paradise, mate. I don't know what went wrong there. Anyway, yeah, it's a wonderful country. Yeah, beautiful. And he lives there now. He's lived there for 4 or 5 years. And
retired?
no, he'll be back over here this year, and he's touring.
He's
I think he's doing the
touring.
Palladium this time round.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to hear David's songs, go and see Leo at the Palladium.
In fact, right now, I think it's around about now, Just a Boy would be 50 years.
Is it?
Adam's album, I Survive, is 50 years this year. 74, that's 50 years, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, now's definitely time to get a signed copy of David's
Yeah.
book then. So,
Plug that.
yeah, do you like that, do you? So, before we get on to the book itself, you've also got an album anthology. So, do you want to tell everybody about that as
A little
well?
while now, yeah, and I put that together. My mic's gone off, is it? Hello? The anthology album. Yeah, I wanted to do that because, you know, it's a bit like with the book, really. You know, I figured to myself, look, okay, I've got an interesting story to tell here. It's been a long, very interesting journey. It's had its peaks and its troughs. Personally, I've experienced a lot of both. And I figured, well, the only reason really I want to do a book and the anthology is because I felt that I needed to document it, because I felt like, well, when I go, I'm not here to tell you, so put it all down, you know, why be so precious of it, just put it all down, you know, warts and all, so to speak. And in the same way with the anthology album, I thought, well, I've got, you know, a good body of work there, I should really put it out. And it's done very well, the anthology. It's a double CD. And there's all sorts of versions on it of different things, like Maggie Bell's version of In My Life is brilliant, and Smokey's version of The Dancer, which was a song that we did originally on the Silverbird.
Yeah.
So putting that all together was wonderful.
And you've got codes in here, haven't you? Do you want to tell people about
again,
the
I
codes in
don't
here?
know if anybody else has done this yet, but what I wanted to do was, I thought, when I'm reading, or I listen more to audiobooks than I do read, bit of a lazy person when it comes to that. But what I wanted to do, I figured, isn't it great, you know, when you're reading somebody's story, if it's music based, that is, and you're talking about, like I did earlier on, about the sessions and like with Leo and that, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if you want to hear that piece of music at that point in time while you're reading the book? And I thought, why don't I put QR codes in certain chapters, so when I'm talking about something, just you get your phone out, go like that, and it'll take you, and you'll hear a sample of that song.
And we've tried them out, they work.
And it all adds to the experience of the journey. So you're not taken away from. It's not like when you go on the internet and you're on a site and then you've got to leave there and go somewhere else. Yeah. With this, you know, you're reading the book and you just do that on the QR code and bingo. And there's even some of the original demos in there. Those stories I talked about with writing those songs with Leo in that apartment. those original demos are on there as well. You can give it all away and one-man band, and not in the form that you'd think either, you know.
So-
One-man band on a piano is different than the...
So that is a very good point for me to say that David is going to be sitting in that chair, signing copies of this book. How much are you selling them for tonight?
£10.
Just £10 tonight, but with David's signature in. So David will be sitting there. Please come and not just get a book, but be photographed with him as well. I'm sure you like to be photographed with him, and I'm sure David won't mind having a photo done. So I think we'd all like to thank him very much for coming along this evening,
Yes, thank you.
all the way from Brighton. There's maybe not as many of us as we've hoped, but I hope that those of you that are here have had a great night. Ladies and gentlemen, David Courtney.
Thank you.
I paid all my dues, so I picked up my shoes. I got up and walked away. Oh, I was just a boy. I didn't know how to play. Worked hard and failed. Now all I can say is I threw it all away. Oh, I was just a boy.